Good afternoon, Bucks County. Happy to see all of you today. My name is Diane Marseglia, Chairperson of Bucks County Commissioners. I am here with Bob Harvey, Vice Chairman of the Commissioners, and Commissioner Jean DiGirolamo. Before we take any of your questions, we all thought we would just make some welcoming statements. We are almost at September, right, tomorrow, so that should be going back to school days, but it feels a lot different this year. But we're all thinking about all the parents and the kids and the teachers and everybody who is trying to do this school year a little bit different. Obviously, the reason we're doing it differently is because of the COVID crisis. And I just wanted to touch base on how things are doing in Bucks County. We're doing pretty well. We are at what's considered to be, I think, a 2.5% positivity rate, which is terrific. I think they recommend that you try to keep it under 5%, so we're doing really well there. We have gone all the way down to having only one person on a ventilator in our hospital, so that means we have made real progress. And we have had people who have come into the hospital pretty much coming in and then leaving. So we've had a lot of progress that way. At this point, we are getting around 20 to 25 cases per day. Most of them are within families. And that is where we're seeing most of the spread, is that maybe one person in the family gets it and then it goes through that family. So we're in the right direction. We know from looking at the evidence from the summer camps and daycare centers that have been open pretty much full tilt since June, that things are going well and that we're not having any kind of major outbreaks. We have, I think, three public schools that are back or will be back this week full time, as well as a lot of the parochial and private schools. So they will give us an example of how things are going in a few weeks, and we'll be able to share that news with the rest of the school districts so we can all make some informed decisions about that. In the meantime, if anybody is having any kind of problems, if you go on the county website, under the COVID portal, you'll see all kinds of information if you need assistance with mental health. We know that there are an increased incidence of drug and alcohol abuse, especially alcohol abuse recently. Access to help is on that as well. If you need any kind of mental health referrals or even housing link referrals, as we get to a point where people are starting to not be able to stay in their homes anymore, and we want to make sure that you have access to those numbers. I was looking for a text line, but we will put it up soon. There is a text line where teenagers can call or text if they're having a mental health problem or a substance abuse problem. So we would encourage them to do that as well. I will now shift over to Commissioner Harvey, who has all kinds of news for what's going on here. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marseglia. It's occurring to me, first time in a very, very long time, that I'm not going to school either as a student or as a teacher. So for all the people who are teaching, whether it's in a classroom or from home virtually or some mix, and obviously for all the students, and especially for all the parents who are trying to juggle going back to work and also being a teacher, at home with their kids, and wish everybody a very successful school year. We've had certainly a lot of time in the school community to get ready for this spring. I imagine would have been very, very difficult. I tried to imagine myself, how I would have handled, snapping from in-person learning to virtual in a matter of just a couple of days. So I know from my own daughter, who is a senior in high school in the spring and is now starting college virtual just last week, that it is certainly a challenge. It's definitely getting something to get used to, but I think everybody just needs to have some patience and know that you can reach out to your teachers, to your professors. If you do have concerns, like Commissioner Marseglia mentioned, of a personal nature, you can still email guidance counselors. They're still obviously working, and so you can still reach out to them. So the school can still be a network for helping the whole child. We do have a second round of grant funding. Back in May and June, the county allocated about $14 million to small businesses, and we had our Bucks Back to Work grant that went out, and about a little over 900 businesses were awarded grant money. There is a second round, which we did mention we're going to do a second round. That round will launch in September. The information is up on the main website. Under the Economic Resources portal, there's information about the grant. This grant is also open to small businesses. If you did receive one of the first grants, you are not eligible to apply again. If you did apply for the grant the first time around and did not get one, you can apply a second time. This is also open. Last round, we capped it at around $700,000 in revenue, annual revenue. That was the cap. The cap this year, this round is up to $2 million. So if you're a business that has 49 employees or fewer, and your revenue for a year is at or below $2 million, you can apply for this grant. There will be a webinar next week to help explain some of the process if you're concerned about how to do it. At the last round, we had a one-day window for turning in an application, whether you're doing it online or doing it in person. We actually expanded that, so you have a 5-day window this time, sort of mid-September. We are trying to take as many as we can virtually. The process has been changed, made more simple, we believe, and also more clear to help businesses do this. Our goal is to really help as many as we can. So we tried to simplify the process as much as we can, learn from some of the things that we did in the first round, keep the things that worked well, tinker a little bit with the things that we felt needed a little bit of changing. So that information is up and available. There was a webinar to help explain it next week. And hopefully we'll be sending out about $15 million in early October. I also wanted to thank all of you who have sent back in either in person or in hard copy or in virtual form the census for your home. We are the top ranking county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in terms of turning in the census. There are some townships and boroughs that have very, very high numbers. Upper Makefield, I think, might be leading the charge on there. And we still have, definitely, I think we're at about 76% or so, 77% response rate, which is great, but we want to make sure that we have everybody counted. Keep in mind, this is not just for figuring out a breakdown of borders and boundaries for elected officials. Seats for State House, State Senate, Congress are all determined based on population. And so those boundaries can change. Probably, even more important for people, we just talked about funding coming out, that the funding that we get from the state and from the federal government is based on our population. And the number is somewhere around $2,000 is lost for every person we don't count, every person who's missed. The estimate is about $2,000 in federal money is lost. And that's $2,000 per year. And of course, it's every 10 years. So we could be really, hurting ourselves. Bucks County is joining with counties from around the country. We are filing with other counties in Pennsylvania an amicus brief for a suit that has been filed by some other state and local governments over the decision to shorten the time when the census is collected. It was supposed to go to end of October. It was changed by the administration, the federal administration, to end of September. That's 1 month less to try and count people. We think that's wrong, especially in a pandemic where you haven't had the ability for census takers to go around knocking on doors and getting the kind of response they need to make sure they get everybody. We think we need more time, and we think there could be some damage done to our ability to get federal and state funding. So we're filing with some other southeastern PA counties. I think even Allegheny County might be on there today, actually, a brief. So I want to thank our law department for getting involved in that, and hopefully we can get the census expanded a little more. And I'll turn it over now to Commissioner DiGirolamo.
Hey, thanks, Bob, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to be with you. And while the coronavirus and handling and managing this virus takes up most of our time, not only the commissioner's time, but many of the employees here in Bucks County, it's really, really important. I think we've got good news to say with that. There is an issue I'd just like to touch on that is important as well to everybody, and that's the upcoming election. And a lot of attention has been centered around the mail-in ballots and absentees. And again, we used it for the first time, the mail-in ballots during the primary. We did have some problems with it. We hope to eliminate those problems. But one of the things that we really would like to see happen, and we need help from Harrisburg to be able to do this, is to give us more time to open up the envelopes that we receive in the mail, open the envelopes, take the ballots out of the envelopes, and give us some extra time to be able to scan and count those ballots. I understand there's a lot of talk up in Harrisburg right now of allowing us to be able to do that. And again, it's going to have to be a negotiation and a compromise between the governor and the Republican-controlled House and Senate. And I'm actually hearing some pretty good news that those talks and that compromise is happening right now. I know the House is back in session tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and the Senate is expected to come back, I think, after Labor Day. So hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will get some relief from Harrisburg that'll allow us to be able to open the envelopes up and have them counted so we can have a pretty accurate vote count when the polls close at 8 o'clock on election day. And I think that's what people are used to. And that's something I think that's really, really important, and especially because this is a presidential year and we're going to have a very, very high turnout and a large number of mail-in ballots. So with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Commissioner Marseglia and for some questions.
Thank you. So I'm trying to just make sure I slide back up here. So we start at the top with the questions. The first question that I have listed here, and there may be some more, is from Danielle Keppel-Schaefer, and she wanted to know when Bucks County will open up to 100%. Well, really, that's going to depend on the governor. We are sort of operating under the governor's rule right now where we are open, but there are limitations in restaurants and a few other places. I think the limit right now is 20, not more than 25 people in a setting, and the restaurants are still at, is it at 50%?
25%,
and there can be outside dining. Bars are not open unless they are making at least some of the food there, so you have to be able to eat. So the governor will let us know when that change is coming into effect. Bob or Jean, anything on that?
I mean, again, it's up to the governor. The one area that I would like to see opened up a little bit more, again, is our restaurants. They're at 25% capacity inside. I think that, and especially here in Bucks County, I mean, I think we should really be open at 50%. I think that would be reasonable and safe, and I would really like to see the governor and the administration allow our restaurants, not only here in Bucks County, but around the state, to be open to 50% capacity inside.
Yeah, and I did, one of the concerns talking to some people who are involved in restaurant businesses, they are in many cases fine right now. The outdoor, tents are up, and townships and boroughs have made allowances for restaurant owners to have some outdoor seating and parking areas and places like that. But once the weather starts changing, and we don't obviously know what's going to happen between now and mid to late October or so, that outdoor seating isn't going to be, as desirable to a lot of people. And there's a concern with restaurants that they can't necessarily start putting up sides on those tents because that would make them no longer outdoor seating. Mm-hmm. So I did make sure I did communicate with the governor's office about 2 weeks ago and shared that concern with them. They let me know that it is something they're focused on and something that's in their decision making mind as they're moving forward.
Okay. And the next question is from Sean Burke. Any comments on the revised CDC COVID death count, and will this affect the local death count? I saw that question come up, and I had tried to get a question out there to make sure that I wasn't missing something. I'm not sure what the new CDC count is, but the state and CDC are using, as far as we know, the same way we are. People are counted as a COVID death as long as that they had COVID. I think we have 519 deaths, where the state has us at 590, but there is some guesstimates here that we may have about 20% of the deaths may have had something besides just COVID. So there may have been a contributing condition. Commissioner Harvey or DiGirolamo, do you need to correct me on any of that?
No.
Thank you for not correcting me. This is from Amy Kearns from Lower Makefield. Is there any help on the county level for working families who have school-aged children? The only options available for working parents to be home with their children during virtual learning is either to quit our jobs or take a third of a pay cut or 12 weeks while using FMLA. I feel for you. I'm not sure what I would have done if I was in your shoes. It's a very, very difficult time if you don't have, family members or a way to partner up with friends to kind of do some joint childcare. And then that means that, people are together when we're telling them to stay away from each other. I would contact your school district and ask if they have any suggestions or ideas. There may be groups that have called the individual school districts and offered some assistance. Commissioner Harvey was a teacher. Have you heard anything out there for what parents can do?
No, and unfortunately, I know, as commissioners, we don't have control over the school districts themselves. So it's the school boards that made the decision about what model to follow. And certainly this was one of the major issues, was for parents who are working in person, and a lot of people are still virtual, but there are definitely people who need to be working in person. They don't have the ability to work virtually for a variety of reasons. I know that we've certainly helped, a lot of the agencies, Bucks County Opportunity Council, places like that, can help in different ways. But with the child care issue, it's a problem. We just don't really have a solution for them. I wish I did, but I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I know a lot of families are really struggling with this issue because the children are home. And, I really think it's important for employers, if they have the ability to allow their employees to work from home and stay home, and that way they could be with their children as well when they're, on the computer and during their schoolwork. So just encouraging employees to really take that under consideration and be very sensitive to the fact that children are home. A parent needs to be home with their children when they're not in school, and that if you can allow them to work from home at the same time, that would really, really be a big help.
That's all true. And the best thing that we can recommend for everybody listening, and I know we have our Bucky wearing the mask all the time out there, is really the more all of us follow social distancing and masks, the better we are helping everybody get their kids back to school. Because a healthy county will be able to send the kids back to school sooner. So, and that's the best thing we can recommend for you right now. There's a question here from Emily French, and she's concerned about potential evictions in Bucks County over the next 6 months. I think that's a concern probably all over the country, and it's nice to see that you are concerned about that with your neighbors. We are gearing up for that. If you can call, if you know anybody, you can refer them to Housing Link, or if you need any assistance. It is on that portal, the COVID portal I mentioned in the beginning, and we will connect people with whatever service that would work best for them, including if they need some legal advice. My understanding is our district justices will be handling a lot of those cases, and they're sensitive to the issue and trying to work something out. I don't know if Commissioner Harvey or Deidre Alma want to weigh in on that one.
Gene?
Yeah, I think it's important for both people who are renting and the people who are owners of these properties to please try to work together to come up with something that will allow the people to stay in their apartments as long as possible, to try to work out a payment plan. I know that owners of some of these apartment complexes are struggling as well as the people who are living in the apartments, but I've always found that there is, if you work together, there is a solution. And I think tomorrow, the 1st of September, is when the deadline runs out. So people are, going to be filing in district court. And as Commissioner Marseglia said, I believe our district justices are going to be very sensitive to try to work something out, so that people can stay in their homes or maybe get on a payment plan. And I would hope that, and I think, that in Washington, they're working on another stimulus bill. And I would hope that as part of that stimulus bill, whenever they get to it, that they would extend that deadline where people could not be thrown out of their apartments or rental places, and extend that deadline and give them a little bit more time. but people are really struggling because of this coronavirus.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know our director of housing and community development, our director of housing, I should say, Jeff Fields, was working on this because, again, this deadline was supposed to be end of July and it got extended. So we were getting ready, working with different agencies and charities that focus on this issue to help people getting ready for July 31st. And so we do have, as Commissioner Marseglia said, we do have some a lot of contacts in place, and in many ways are geared up to help people. But Commissioner Deidre almost said it perfectly. It does require people on both sides. The landlords and the tenants have to work together on this.
Just to follow up on that question right there, there was a question from Morgan Worthington about what we're doing about the end of the moratorium on evictions in Pennsylvania. And that's sort of a similar answer, is that we've been gearing up for it, being prepared. Then the Opportunity Council is our lead agency. As I said, you call Housing Link and then you are kind of screened through a process to make sure that we are getting you with the main agency. But the Opportunity Council helps us with a lot of those problems. We do want to keep people in housing. That is the primary focus, is to keep people in housing. So we're all about helping with that. Anything I forgot on that?
No.
Question from Maura Fleisch on student loans. Any forgiveness for them since it's online only? I'm not sure that I've heard anything about that. Bob, you have people college age.
I do have a son who's just graduated from college in May. So his student loans, I know they were pushed back. The original date I think you had to start paying was September. It's now been pushed to November. But that is a federal program. And so that's something, again, going back to, the people in Washington need to start, getting on the same page and realizing that people are hurting and they need to start doing something about it. I know there are a lot of efforts to do things. And I know there's, certainly a lot of concern about making sure that people who are, still unemployed, who still, need that money to help pay the bills, people who have student loans, people who are going to lose their homes. There are definitely a lot of propositions and plans to help them, but there needs to be a more cooperation, I think, between the two parties to get it done.
Right.
Yeah, and again, I think that's more of a federal issue than a county issue. And I would just, the forgiveness of student loans or help with student loan. I think that's an issue that you hear our presidential candidates talking about, and also our federal candidates. I would just ask everybody to pay attention to what they're talking about. And, some of them have some pretty good ideas on student loan forgiveness. So, listen to what the candidates are saying, and, you'll have a chance to vote in November.
There you go. Question about, just popped on me, sorry about that. It looks like it's from Mimi Bear, and it says, how many people are we allowed to have in a house gathering with social distance? As far as I understand, that is 25 people, but in that house, you really should be either in masks or with at least 6 foot distance between people. Bob or Jean, having a lot of parties, you want to comment on that?
No, but I do know, and we've heard from Dr. Damsker, that part of the bump in cases we saw once we moved from yellow to green, certainly we saw bumps in sort of early June as we were going green from people who had gone away for the Memorial Day weekend, had gone to a different state where there weren't as many or any protocols. And when they came back, obviously they admitted they hadn't been as diligent at keeping distances as they should. And after July 4th, we certainly saw some bumps from people who had gone to house parties. And it's all about really just caring about, other people and making sure that, you're not, passing on this virus to anybody else that you're with. And so that's really what it comes down to, but being smart.
Yep. I have nothing to add, Diane. It's good.
Okay. Let's see, this is from Kevin Feeney, Bristol Borough. Almost 2 years ago, I was told that the Government Services Center at 5 Points in Levittown would undergo extensive repaving. To date, nothing has been done. Almost the entire blacktop area from the entrance of the District Justice to the Free Library is in deplorable condition. In some areas, you could get front end damage. So tomorrow's the beginning of September. When's the project going to be done? And I think Commissioner Harvey has an answer on that.
That's actually something I was asking about back in the wintertime, really, when I first got elected. Having taught at the tech school, which is connected, right, it's right adjacent to that property. You're right, and it's been bad. There's a pothole there that really, you could lose a small car in and never find it again. And it's been sort of continual like that. COVID obviously interrupted that. The plan is to do it this year. COVID was interrupted originally. We did go out to bid in the summertime, but the bids came in very, very, very high, way higher than they should have been. We are actually voting on Wednesday. We went out to bid again, and we got back some good bids, and we're voting on Wednesday to approve a contractor to do that work. It is a contractor that did a lot of work in Falls Township, as it so happened when we did road programs in Falls Township. So it's a very, very large, reputable contractor here in southeastern PA that does a lot of road work, a lot of paving work. And so that should be moving forward very quickly.
Thanks. Anything?
No, that's good. Bob explained it perfectly. We're voting on Wednesday at our next commissioners meeting, and we should have that voted on and in place, and hopefully pretty soon you'll see the work being done.
So I'm hoping I'm saying this person's name right, that it's Moses G. And is asking, can stores ask people what their reason for not wearing a mask, or does the ADA still protect them? I think it was the governor's order more than the ADA that might be protecting people, because if people were not told that they had to prove that they had a medical condition. I had said, I think at a press conference recently, that I accidentally got out of my car and went into the pet store without a mask. So it's possible that people who you see are doing that, they just forgot. And a young woman who was there was very kind to say, do you need one? So that's the way the stores can approach it. If you see somebody in the store, I think you should say something to the manager. Let them, don't get into it. Let them take that on. I like to tell myself that the only people who don't have a mask are people who have some kind of a condition, because we all know better than that now. But I suppose it can still happen that there may be some holdouts there that don't realize that this is the important thing to do. Yeah. Bob or Jean, any thoughts on stores and people protecting other people by making sure they have masks on?
Well, I think, certainly we've all, and I know there's a country song very close to this slogan that, no shoes, no shirt, no service. Certainly store owners have always been able to require people to have a certain level of dress when they come into their establishment. It is their establishment, as long as they're applying that rule, evenly and equally. And they're not being discriminatory, then that's within their right, it's their store. So I think certainly store owners and managers can ask people to put on a mask. It's really, I don't think necessarily as much a law that says you can't ask somebody. I think it's more a little bit some people see it as impolite, but we just hope that everyone who's not wearing a mask is not wearing it because they do have some kind of health condition, that it's not because they just think there's some kind of a conspiracy, or they think it's they think it makes them tougher if they're not wearing one, because it's not really helping anybody at this stage, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Just to remind everybody, I think it's still critically important that we all continue to wear masks, and when I look back at when we all started to wear masks, I guess it was back maybe in April or May. And as soon as we told people that they need to wear masks, that's when our numbers here in Bucks County started getting a lot better as far as the positivity rate, as the number of people testing positive, the start of people who were going into the hospital in the ICU. And unfortunately, people dying. When we all started to wear masks, those numbers got better a little at a time. So we're in a really good position right now, but I would just encourage everybody that it's still critically important to make sure we all wear masks when we're out in public as much as we can.
Agree. This next question is from Jackie D. Batista of Warminster. She wants to know when all the hand sanitizer stations will be installed at 100 North Main Street per the Pennsylvania Health Department and CDC guidelines. And why is Bucks County separating out the cases of COVID based on transmission? Aren't they all community spread? So I'll just quickly answer from my perspective. Yes, there are already hand sanitizers in every county office and in every county department. I'm very pleased to say wherever I go around here, I can simply look and there's something there. And we've come a long way since March and April when we couldn't find any. There are also bathrooms open in all county offices and departments so that you have access to water and soap. We specifically do want to spread out and explain why there's different transmissions, because it is not all community spread. Community spread is really when you don't know how the person got it. That's why our contact tracing has been so important. I believe we have a 97% contact tracing rate, and we can tell through that 97% if people got it from someone they knew at work, from a party they attended and a person there, or from a family member. Community spread is when you really can't identify where the source is. Is that what you understand as well, Commissioner Harvey and Jean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, you know, we're seeing a pretty large number of people who have been traveling, whether they're on vacation or maybe for work or visiting people, and they're going to these other states which are experiencing what we would call hotspots and coming back and bringing the virus with them when they come back here to Bucks County. So, I mean, I would also ask people to be really, really careful. I mean, if you have to put off a vacation and not go somewhere where the virus is really, I mean, I think that's a really good idea to put that vacation off and maybe stay close to home here in Pennsylvania and vacation there. So, you know, we still have to be really, really careful. But a lot of people are bringing it back from out-of-state travel. And that seems to be a big problem right now where we're experiencing positive cases.
Yep. The next question, I'm not sure if I can figure out where I just lost it here, but it was about whether or not students still need to wear face masks, or who would make that decision to stop, you know, having them wear them. And that would come from the governor. Any other, did I miss anything on there that you're seeing? Sometimes when they go by, I've been known to miss a question before.
There is a question, and I don't think it has a, there's no name attached to it. I'm not sure where it came from, about college students paying rent when their college is online. You know, obviously that's, you know, I would tend probably to agree with that. That, you know, certainly if you're not using the county dormitories, you shouldn't, or college dormitories, you shouldn't necessarily be paying for rent there. But obviously something out of our control. The county commissioners don't, you know, have any control over any of the colleges here in Bucks County in terms of what they charge for, you know, for room and board and dorm fees and things like that. So it's something you have to, you know, kind of work out with whatever college, university you or your family member is going to.
You know, just a quick shout on that if it's okay. I teach a course at the community college, and I have to say, it has not been easy for all the teachers there, including me, to take classes that we normally taught, you know, face to face, and we're able to answer questions and explain things and try to synthesize that down to the computers. But I also want to give a big thank you to the students, because this has not been as easy of a curve for them either. Especially time management is a little bit different when you're doing it online. So we all ought to pat ourselves on the back for the fact that we are all walking through this together that way. Jean, were you going to say something? I don't know if I...
No, I wasn't. No.
I think there is a new question from Kelly Shellmeyer from Quakertown. What is the end zone here? There are no cases in Upper Bucks. The CDC reveals 90% in nursing homes, 94% has 2 to 3 comorbidities. The average person has no chance of death. When does the fear, she referred to it as mongering, end? I'm just taking a minute here. You know, I guess I know a few people who have lost people to COVID. And so I don't think that they would think of it as fear mongering. It's been very painful for them. This is a virus that, when we look at it right now in Bucks County, it doesn't look very scary, but it looked very scary in March and April. And we did the right things. And because, as Jean said, we wore masks, we did the right things. And that's why we are where we are. For me, and I will let my colleagues speak, there was a lot of fear that this would come back in November. And we are trying to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. to make sure that we keep it under control. And I think that's why you're seeing schools and businesses all try to keep control of things as best they can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, reminded back in the springtime, March or April, when there's a lot of people angry about Governor Wolf's orders in terms of how things were going to be run here in Pennsylvania as the virus was really hitting us. And I remember a couple of emails who people just outraged that we just weren't doing whatever we wanted to do here and just sort of, to heck with the governor and and open up Bucks County. And they were, praising the job of, governors like Governor DeSantis in Florida and what a wonderful job he was doing, and all the other governors in southern states and what wonderful jobs they were doing. And I think, the record is pretty clear at this point that how it was handled in states, here like New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, certainly had a much more, scientific and measured approach to making sure that we were doing things the right way. We've seen the outbreaks in a lot of states where they just didn't think it was a big deal and everything's going to be fine. And we don't have to worry about masks, and we can have large gatherings, and it's all just going to disappear. Well, it's not disappearing. This is the worst pandemic in over 100 years. And I've said this in a couple of emails to people that have asked. There's literally no one alive today who's ever had to govern through anything like this anywhere in the world. And so there is no playbook for this. We're writing it as we go along. For hopefully the next pandemic is a far, far distant time from now. It'd be great if it never happened, but we have to be realistic and think it may at some point. And so we're doing things, I think, here in Pennsylvania in a way that's cautious and trying to do as much as we can to protect every life, because every life, is important to someone, whether they are elderly or not, whether they have other, health conditions or not. I'm not going to go down the street and pick out somebody and say, well, you don't matter very much because you have some kind of health condition. I'm not going to do that. And so I'm glad we have a governor who's not going to do it either.
Yeah, and I can assure everybody that from the very beginning, the three of us, and again, I want to thank my colleagues because we've really worked very, very well together in trying to manage and handle this coronavirus. But from the very beginning, your three commissioners, the health, the safety, and the welfare of the people who live in Bucks County have always been our number one concern. And I know there were times when people wanted to open up maybe faster than we actually did. And I can understand that. But again, just last night, a very good friend of mine lost his grandfather to the virus. And he had been on a ventilator for a couple of weeks, and he just passed away last night, and the family's just devastated. So again, your health, your safety, and your welfare is our number one concern, and we're going to be making decisions based on what's best for the residents here in Bucks County and keep them safe and healthy.
I'm going to combine these two questions because they're kind of related. The first is from Darlene Clemson. She's a general question. What about in-person kids that are going to school? And the second question is from Courtney Nelson. And it's, will the county consider offering tax rebates for areas that schools are closed and not being held in person? Just a quick answer, the county does not raise school taxes. The school districts raise school taxes. That's been an ongoing concern. I know that we've gotten a lot of emails and calls from people asking us to either open the schools or to make sure the schools don't open, but it is not a decision that the commissioners can even weigh in on. It is a district by district thing, which is kind of nice that in Bucks County, we are allowed to make that decision district by district. So some of the areas that don't have any, really virtually almost any cases of COVID have been able to go ahead and open, and others haven't. But I don't know that those school districts will be giving rebates because their teachers are teaching anyway. They're just teaching remotely. So there's two questions there. I'll go to Commissioner Harvey first about comments about kids going to school in person and about tax rebates for not having in-school classes.
Well, I think you answered it very well. And the one thing I would point out too is that while I could talk about in terms of costs, well, certainly school districts may have saved some money. Obviously, they're not ones that are virtual or not running buses, for example. You do have to consider the upgrades that probably had to happen in terms of technology. Whether it was their IT system itself or whether there were some districts that just were buying laptops for students, and that was not something anybody budgeted for. And so the costs were probably offset, but certainly you're well within your right to talk to your school district, to go to a school board meeting, whether it's virtual or in person, and ask them about the funding that they've spent and what money they have. And the one thing I would just add to Commissioner Marseglia's point, we did have about 85,000 face shields, which we, the county, paid for and gave out to every school, public, private, parochial schools. The ones that were opening in person have received all their face shields. I know Commissioner DiGirolamo talked about his grandchildren, I think, or grandson at St. Ephraim and Ben Salem. So we are going to give it out to schools who are in hybrid. We allocated money to purchase face shields for every student in Bucks County, K to 12. And so that's something that, we did. Other counties did not do that because we know that the shields are more permanent. You can take them home, you clean them. They're less likely to get lost, certainly, although I'm certain there are some parents out there who know that are saying right now, well, if there's a kid who's going to lose a face shield, it's going to be my kid because their kids that just lose things like that. But also they do provide some measure of protection, and they are also much more comfortable than wearing a face mask, an actual surgical mask or an N95 mask for several hours. School districts that have gone virtual but will likely open, we did buy shields for those too. So they will get them, once we've gotten through all the other districts, make sure all the kids have them.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that, whether a school district opens or not, it's up to the elected school board. It's their decision in, talks with the superintendent, the administration, and the teachers, whether they think they can open up safely or not. So, I think it's fair that way. I mean, the people in the school district elect the school board and, they make the decision on whether they think they can open up safely or not.
I do not see any other questions. Bob or Jean, did you see any that I missed?
Yeah, there's one here right in the middle of the two you just read, actually. Dawn Moran's, I think, maybe. I apologize if I didn't say that right. Are layoffs happening in the county offices? I know the library system is laying off people. The county isn't laying anybody off. We do have quite a few employees who are working virtually. That if they're able to do that, and a lot of employees who are here in the buildings, and we've been back that way really since May.
Jean, anything on that?
Yep. No, I mean, we kind of made a commitment that we were going to keep everybody working in the county, and people that could come in to work could come in, and people who could work at home and virtually, that we would allow that as much as possible. And I think it's really worked out very, very well, because I think we've continued to deliver the county services to the people in a pretty good, timely way. So I think it's worked out really, really well. But we did kind of make a commitment from the very beginning that unless it was absolutely necessary, we were not going to furlough or lay anybody off, and we haven't. And so I think it's worked out very well.
Thanks. So I don't see anything else either. Wait, here comes one.
Yeah, a couple have come in.
That was quick how that happened. And I just put the chat line number in there, 741-741. That's the teen and adult text chat line if you're feeling any anxiety, depression, things like that. So the question from Michael Miller, I have a question. The Turkish American Club on Haynes Road in Bristol Township is packed every weekend, including the parking lot. I see no masks, and I was wondering, why are they allowed to be open at full capacity, possibly over capacity, and the other businesses are limited? Unless my colleagues know anything, I'm not aware of that, and we can have the health department take a look at that.
Yeah, it's I'm not aware either. I'm not sure. Turkish American Club I'm thinking of is on Levittown Parkway, not on Haynes Road. But yeah, I'm not as familiar with that. But certainly we can have our health department take a look. The one question about daycares: will the county tell if any cases come from a daycare? The contact tracing, that's the point of contact tracing. So if there is a staff member or a child, and we've had some cases of staff members and kids here and there. We have not seen any widespread spread of the virus, among any staff or among kids in daycares at all. But the contact tracing is designed to do that. So if there's a child in a daycare who it does test positive, the contact tracing will alert that daycare. The daycare then can take the steps they need to take, and the same is true if it's a staff member. We do ask where they work, and then we contact their place of work and make sure they're aware of it too. So, that's the standard procedure for that.
There is a question here from Brian Wiener. Will the township be assisting school districts with traffic issues as they reopen and more parents decide to transport their children instead of putting them on a school bus? Just a quick reaction to that. I think that's a really important question. Once we go back, if there are not school buses or parents don't do it, I think a lot of times people forget what that traffic nightmare could be like getting into the schools. The county does not have a role. You're correct. It was townships, and I'm sure that'll be on a township by township basis. I don't know. Commissioner Harvey, as the township supervisor, have you heard about that?
Yeah, I haven't. That was something that was, I was on a conference call with the superintendents back actually a few months ago, several months ago. I think it was probably even May or maybe early June. And that was a concern that was raised. There was a lot of concern then. So I think it's definitely something superintendents were conscious of, that even if they did open, of course, this was in June, we didn't know what was going to happen in August, September. If school districts did open, were there, going to be buses? Were there going to be parents who didn't want to have their kids on buses and would drive them themselves? How would that handle with traffic? That is something that the school districts have to work with their local municipalities, their boroughs and townships on to work out traffic issues. It's something they're going to have to be very conscious of. And I would hope they would have worked out by now. I haven't heard of anything specific. I live in the Pennsbury district where it's all virtual. And so they're back to starting. My kids are out of school now, so I haven't heard of anything, in terms of other districts.
Yeah, I mean, I can only say, and again, this would not be a county function, but I can only believe that if there were going to be problems, that the school district would reach out to the local police departments to assist them, because I think the safety of the children are the number one concern. So I am sure that the school district, working with the local police departments, if there's any problem as far as traffic goes around the school or at the bus stops, that they will both cooperate and make sure the kids are safe.
Thanks. Then there's a question here from Dawn. I think it's Maureen. I don't think you asked this one, did you, Bob? Do you have any authority for the library system? This seems to be a county service, and we have been laid off. I'm sorry to hear about that. The county commissioners do appoint the members of the board to the library, but it acts as an authority unto itself. We don't have any say on who was hired, who was fired, or layoffs, but I'm assuming that there are less people going into the library or something that's causing that. I don't know if Commissioner Harvey or Commissioner DiGirolamo have heard anything from the libraries.
No, I haven't. We certainly can reach out to the library board just to find out, some of the reasons. Yep.
That's, always a very stressful thing. There is a question here too about the amount of cases in daycares. I don't have an answer for that. I believe we do know it's not a particularly high number. That's one of the reasons that, we think that we're hopeful that we'll be able to pull the school thing off, because the daycares have shown that it hasn't been a huge problem, but they operate a little different than schools do. Mm-hmm. Anything on daycare?
No.
And I missed anything this time?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
That's it. Yep.
Any closing comments?
Just one thing, if I could, Commissioner DiGirolamo mentioned the things being done in Harrisburg to address the election. The county did update our website. I think we'll actually ask to have this screen shared for a second so people can see it. All right, so you see on the right-hand side, the Bucks County General Election Information Portal. That was just updated last week. And we will keep updating it as much as we can with information, so you can find out important dates. You can register to vote, application mail-in and status. You can find out how to check if you've already mailed in an application for a mail-in ballot or absentee ballot, and you can check your status there. Polling locations, that might subject to change. You can find out about the new voting machines, watch a little video on how they're used if you didn't get a chance to use them in the spring. FAQs are there as well. The one thing I will mention, actually, if we can go back a page, sorry. If we can just kind of write the application status and also the Dropbox information. The Board of Elections will have a meeting next week to start to talk about the drop boxes for the mail-in ballots and absentee ballots, where they'll be located and the hours they'll be in operation. But if you have applied online or if you've mailed in a mail-in application for a ballot, we know there are different groups, the political parties and other different groups have sent around all kinds of things. I've gotten a bunch of them at my house trying to get people to register to do mail-in ballots. If you've already done it, we do have a backlog. You can check this website. You can click here. You'll see the little red circle there, the pending. That means that the information's been received and approved, and you're good to go. If it hasn't been processed yet, you'll see a message like that. We're unable to match your information with our records. That doesn't mean we haven't received your application. It just means that it has to go through. These applications all are processed not by computers, they're processed by people. So your application is opened up, Board of Elections employee looks at the information, verifies that everything matches, so that we know that it's a legitimate application. If there's anything it doesn't match, it'll be rejected. So be careful, make sure you're doing it, very, filling all the information in accurately. Once all that is done, it's verified up against the state Board of Election or state voter registration information. So it's done, it's a process for each application is done individually. This isn't some mass, computer generated system. This is just, human beings doing data entry to make sure it's done right. And it does take a little while. And we did have about 25,000 applications to go through as of last week. Our staff has worked very, very hard to get that down. It's around 12,000 now. And we're getting a lot of people who are putting in duplicate applications. So they're putting in an application, they're checking maybe immediately, maybe a day later. They're seeing the message that says we were unable to match your information with our records, and then they are submitting another one. And then they're checking a day or two later, and they're just sending in. We had somebody who had sent in about 24, 25 applications just because they assumed that, it wasn't getting, they were doing something wrong or something wrong with the system. It's not. It just takes a little bit of time. But every time you submit another one, we have to go through that one too, because we don't know, are you submitting another one because you made a mistake on the first one? Or did something change between the time you filled out the first one and the time you filled out this one? Maybe, we have to, it just slows the whole process down. So we are going through it. I just ask for everyone's patience in terms of filling this out. And this information, as it needs to be updated, will be updated. So check back whenever you want to find out all the questions. And the questions there, as you saw earlier, the frequently asked questions. So check there first before calling the Board of Elections. Check the frequently asked questions first. They're the ones who made them up for us based on all the calls they get, so that they should, there's a very good chance that whatever question you have is going to be answered on this sheet. And again, it's really about, helping our staff here do their jobs. If more and more people are making telephone calls to our staff, that's fewer and fewer, applications they can go through. That's fewer and fewer voter registration forms they can go through. And it's slowing the process down. So this is just something to be helpful, and we will update it as often as we need to make sure that you get the information as accurately and as quickly as you can.
So Bob, I guess you're saying you can't have enough masks, but you can apply to vote.
That's right. Yes.
Jean, any closing comments?
Bob, Commissioner Harvey just explained the voting, and we're committed to making, we want to see everybody vote, and we want to make sure that whether you vote by mail, absentee vote, or go to the polls, that it's safe, that it's easy, and that you can be assured that your vote counts and is secure. So we're committed to making sure that happens in November. For the presidential election, I would encourage everybody to vote. I think it's really, really important to make our democracy as healthy as possible. And with that, please continue to wear masks. That's the other message I want to get out, because it's making a big difference. It really is. Please continue to wear masks, social distance, and take this seriously, because it is serious. So thank you all for joining us today, and I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Marseglia.
And there's Bucky. Final word comes from Bucky, and he's masked up. And, you know, we started us all together back in March, and it's September, and I am hoping that by November we are saying that we are on the down end of this. But I really agree with Commissioner DiGirolamo. If we wear our masks, we're going to get there a lot quicker and a lot easier. So we will all talk to you soon, and thanks, everybody. Take care. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.